Somewhere beyond the desert winds of forgotten civilizations, hidden in the ruins of a collapsed temple or buried beneath a sacred mountain, there exists a book. Not a book written by man, but one whispered into being. They say it was never written, but revealed. Passed down not through ink and parchment, but through visions seen at the edge of death and carried back by those who were not meant to return. This book, they say, reveals what happens after the final breath. Not in vague symbols or hopeful poetry, but in exact, terrifying, astonishing clarity. The ancient Egyptians called it the Book of Coming Forth by Day. The Tibetans called it Bardo Thodol, the guide for the intermediate state. And the Hermetic mystics whispered of the Book of Thoth, said to contain all the secrets of death and immortality. But some say, all these were fragments of a much older, much more dangerous book. A book that doesn't describe what happens after death. It shows you. Line by line, it unfolds the journey of the soul after death. From the first strange seconds when the body no longer responds, to the moment your soul stands before its own reflection, and chooses what happens next. This is not just mythology. This is a forbidden map of the afterlife. A map encoded into the mystery traditions of Egypt, India, Greece, Persia, and beyond. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So if you're ready, really ready, let us open the first page of the book that reveals what happens when we die. They say this book writes itself. Somewhere in the space between the stars, or hidden deep within the folds of another dimension, there exists a cosmic ledger where every life and every death is recorded. In the East, they call it the Akashic Records, an etheric library that stores the blueprint of every soul's journey. In ancient Egypt, the high priests believed that every human action echoed in the Hall of Records, a mystical archive hidden beneath the Sphinx. In Hermetic lore, this book was known only to the initiated, a book whose pages turned only when the soul crossed the veil. But beyond all these names, one truth remains constant. Your life is not forgotten, and neither is your death. According to mystics and seers across time, the soul passes through an unveiling the moment it separates from the body. It is drawn not by force, but by frequency toward the record of its own becoming. Imagine standing before a book, and that book begins reading you. Not just what you did, but what you intended. Not just who you were, but who you could have been. Not just your actions, but your soul's echo. The Book of Echoes is not a judgmental text. It is a mirror. It reflects the truth that was hidden even from yourself. And this is why mystics claimed it was dangerous. Because if you read it before your time, you might awaken truths that your body and your ego are not ready to bear. In mystery schools, initiates were symbolically killed in ritual, laid inside stone coffins or underground chambers, so that they might touch this book without dying, and return with wisdom written between the lines. Some never came back, because once the book begins to read you, you either emerge, reborn, or you vanish into its pages forever. There is a silence that no living person has ever truly heard. It comes not during sleep, nor in meditation, but in the exact moment after death. The heartbeat fades, the breath disappears, and then something opens. Mystics across cultures have described this moment not as an end, but as an awakening. The Tibetan yogis spoke of it in whispers. The clear light of the mind will shine. Recognize it or be lost in illusion. In the Egyptian texts, the soul rises like a bird, led by Anubis, toward a gate of shadow and light. And in the Hermetic tradition, it is said, when the chains of the flesh are broken, the soul returns to the realm it never truly left. But what exactly happens? According to ancient seers, the soul does not immediately leave. Instead, it lingers in a liminal zone between dimensions, like standing on the edge of a dream before fully waking. And here, time bends. For some, this moment feels like hours. For others, it's a flash. But always, it is revealing. Many describe seeing their own body from above, watching doctors, loved ones, or even nature carrying on without them. But deeper than that, there is a moment of pure confrontation. A light appears, but it's not the light of heaven. It is your own consciousness, unfiltered. Every thought you suppressed, every desire you denied, Every truth you avoided, it is all there, like music played backward, playing the entire melody of your life in a single eternal note. Some seers described this moment as blissful if their lives had been lived in harmony. Others felt horror as every lie they told themselves screamed for resolution. This is why, in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the soul is given specific mantras to repeat in this moment. Do not cling, do not fear, recognize the light. Because if you recognize this state, you can rise. But if you react with fear, you fall. And this is just the beginning. The mysterious book, hidden in so many names and forms, makes one thing clear. The afterlife is not random. It is shaped by the architecture of your inner world. You don't encounter angels or demons at first. You encounter yourself. And perhaps, that is the most terrifying and liberating truth of all. In the grand halls of Egyptian mythology, there is a scene etched into the walls of eternity. The soul of the deceased stands before Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Anubis, the jackal-headed guide, leads the spirit forward. Before them lies a scale, and on one side is a single white feather, the feather of Ma'at, the principle of truth, balance, and divine order. On the other side, your heart, not your mind, not your name. Your heart, the symbol of all your choices, intentions, and vibrations. If your heart is lighter than the feather, you pass into eternal peace. If heavier, you are devoured by Ammit, the soul eater, a beast that represents eternal forgetting. But the real mystery, this is not a judgment from the gods. It's a judgment from within. In the esoteric interpretation of this ritual, the weighing is not symbolic, it's literal. The soul, after death, confronts itself, and there is no hiding, no justifications, no excuses. You become the judge, the jury, and the witness of your own life. Mystics from Greece, Persia, and India all echoed this, that after death, the soul enters a state where it sees with perfect clarity, not just what it did, but why it did it. Every kindness shines like light. Every cruelty echoes like thunder. The lies told to others, and especially the lies told to oneself, rise like mist and wrap around the soul. And here's the greatest secret. Because when the soul sees its own imbalance, its own falsehood, it yearns to restore harmony. This is why some souls reincarnate, not because they are forced, but because they volunteer to return, to heal what was left unfinished, to love what they once ignored, to face what they once feared. In this way, the afterlife is not a courtroom. It is a mirror, and the most powerful justice is self-awareness. Many spiritual initiates sought to experience this weighing before death, through fasting, ritual, silence, solitude. Because if you could face your heart while still alive, you could live a life that needed no judgment at all. And maybe that's what the mysterious book is trying to teach. That death is not the moment of judgment. It is the moment you remember who you truly are. If death is a doorway, then what lies beyond is not one room but a vast, layered architecture. Ancient mystics spoke of 7 realms the soul may pass through after death. Not places on a map, but states of vibration. Each realm, a mirror of your inner frequency. The Sufis called them Maqamat stations of the soul. The Hindus knew them as lokas, each reflecting a stage of karma and consciousness. The Kabbalists spoke of the 7 heavens, and the Gnostics described eons of radiant and terrifying beauty. But across cultures, the idea remains the same. You do not go where you wish. You go where you resonate. Realm 1, the shadow plane, the lowest realm, dense, heavy, close to the physical. Here, souls wander in confusion, still attached to their identities, possessions, grudges. Some don't even realize they've died. This is the earthbound realm, a kind of purgatory, where regret plays on loop like a broken song. But this realm is not punishment. It's a lesson in detachment. Realm 2, the realm of echoes, a slightly higher realm, where souls begin to see symbols instead of people. Life is replayed in surreal, dreamlike sequences. Each scene reveals the hidden energy behind every action. Here, one begins to understand what their life really meant beyond appearances. Realm 3. The realm of grief and compassion. The soul begins to feel the pain it once caused others, not as punishment, but as awakening. You feel everything you gave, and everything you denied. But if you embrace it, this realm births deep compassion. It softens the ego, preparing the soul for ascension. Realm 4. The realm of light. Now the soul begins to shed its identity. It no longer says, "I am John," or "I was a teacher." It becomes simply awareness. Here, guides may appear radiant beings made of symbol and light. They don't speak in words, but you understand them fully. Realm 5. The realm of unity. Time collapses. Here, the soul begins to feel its connection to all other souls. There is no me and you, only oneness. It's said that some souls weep here not from sorrow, but from remembering a love so vast, so complete, they had forgotten it existed. Realm 6. The realm of choice. Now comes a decision. You are shown your soul's blueprint, not your fate, but your potential. What you've learned, what you've healed, what you still seek. Some choose to rest. Some choose to teach from the higher realms. And some choose to return to earth. Realm 7. The realm of silence. The final realm is beyond words. It is called the Great Stillness, the point before rebirth, or before full dissolution into source. Here, the soul is no longer separate from the universe. There is no form, no memory, only being. It is not empty. It is everything. Mystics believed this map is not just for the dead, but for the living, because the realms you pass through after death are shaped by the realms you explore while alive.
Throughout history, there have been stories that defy reason of souls who cross the threshold of death, only to return to the living world. Near-death experiences, or NDEs, are accounts where people describe leaving their bodies, traveling through tunnels of light, meeting beings of pure love, and seeing glimpses of a world beyond. What makes these stories fascinating is their striking similarity across cultures and centuries. A dying soldier in ancient Greece might have described the same glowing corridor that a modern-day surgeon's patient encounters. A Tibetan monk's vision of the bardo aligns eerily with an Amazonian shaman's journey. These are not mere coincidences. Many spiritual traditions teach that some souls are sent back for a purpose. Why are they sent back? Some are returned because their work is unfinished on this earth. Perhaps a message must be delivered, a truth must be shared, or a loved one must be comforted. Others come back as warnings to remind us of the fragility of life and the reality of what lies beyond. Some return because they have glimpsed the mysterious book, and upon returning, they forget its pages. This forgetfulness is not accidental, it is a mercy, because the knowledge within that book is overwhelming, too vast for the unprepared mind. Yet, fragments of that knowledge leak through dreams, intuition, and sudden insights. Voices from the beyond. Countless mediums, mystics, and shamans have channeled messages from those who have crossed over. They speak of love as the ultimate force, the truth beyond all dogma, and the infinite cycle of souls. They tell us that death is a doorway, not a wall, and that, just beyond the veil, lies the book that contains every soul's story. But it is also a book that changes with each reader, because the afterlife is not static. It is a living mystery. If death is a door, then rebirth is the next step, the turning of the page in the eternal story of the soul. Across ancient teachings, the idea of reincarnation or rebirth appears repeatedly. From the Vedic scriptures of India to the teachings of the Druids, from the Gnostic texts to indigenous beliefs, the soul is seen as a traveler on a cyclical journey. But this cycle is not mere repetition. It is a process of refinement, healing, and evolution. The mysterious book speaks of this cycle not as punishment, but as opportunity. Each life is a chance to resolve what was left undone, to face fears that were avoided, to unlock deeper levels of love and understanding.
The soul chooses the conditions of its return, though often unconsciously based on the lessons it still needs. This choice is shaped by the inner realms explored after death, by the echoes found in the book's pages. In some traditions, rebirth is accompanied by visions of the womb, and by the soul preparing itself in realms of light before returning. The process is sacred, mysterious, and often painful. But what if the cycle could be broken? Many spiritual masters have spoken of liberation, a final awakening where the soul no longer needs to return. This state is called moksha, nirvana, or enlightenment depending on the tradition. It is the ultimate freedom. The soul merges back into the source, beyond identity, beyond cycles. The book, hidden in allegories and sacred symbols, hints that this is the true end of the journey, but only for those who have truly read its pages. What if death is not an enemy, not a thief that steals life, but a teacher? What if the mysterious book is less about what happens after death, and more about what happens because of death? Mystics say that true understanding of death transforms life itself. When you realize death is a passage, a doorway, and not the end, fear loses its grip. Attachment loosens. The soul begins to live freely without the chains of illusion. The book's final secret is this: to understand death is to understand life. The soul that embraces death as a part of the journey becomes fearless, becomes whole, becomes light. And in this transformation, death loses its mystery, because it is no longer something that happens to you. It becomes a partner in your eternal dance. This is the wisdom, hidden in the most ancient texts, that the soul's journey through death and beyond is ultimately about awakening. It is about learning to read the mysterious book, not with fear, but with curiosity and courage. Because once you open its pages, you realize the story is not about an end. It is about a beginning.